Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing the HRCYED 3 recommendations and TBR, and we have made it to Bookception. And that is basically you read a book that mentions another book and you read them both. And as far as I can tell, you only need to read those two books and call it a day, which is great because, as you can see, the next prompt you need to read 12 books. So it's nice to just have one that's rather quickly done. But yeah, so let's just get into it. And first up, I have recommendations for you, and I recently finished Jane Austen's bookshelf and really enjoyed it. This is about a woman, Rebecca Romney, who loves Jane Austen and finds that the world after Jane Austen has kind of been poo-pooing the women writers who would have been an inspiration to Austen. And Rebecca Romney then goes back in time. She reads Austen's books, of course, but also her letters. And does she have some diaries? I don't think so. But some letters, and where she mentions different books and authors, or makes allusions or quotes that show that she read certain books and authors of her time. And yeah, it was really interesting both hearing about what inspired Jane Austen and then also seeing how quickly some of these other women writers were like thrown underfoot and just completely forgotten about and belittled. And obviously, if you read that, you can pick any of Jane Austen's books to read if you haven't read those yet. But there are also a bunch of other books mentioned. One including one that I put on my own TBR, which is How to Suppress Women's Writing by Joanna Russ, and where she basically talks about this way that a lot of women writers have been suppressed and belittled in later years, and like how they were like quietly slipped out of the canon while the male writers were upheld and glorified, basically. But there are also a bunch of what's called fiction books written by authors in Jane Austen's time, and obviously there are some men, but Jane Austen's bookshelf is focused on the women, and especially like she does it in chapters where she focuses on one woman author. For example, Maria Edgeworth, and she talks about all the books that she wrote back then. Castle Rackrent and Ennui, The Absentee, stuff like that. And for example, Charlotte Turner Smith, there's Desmond and The Old Manor House, Emmeline, Charlotte Lennox, the female Quixote. That was mentioned a lot, I remember. And yeah, Evelina by Frances Burney, Belinda. And I think, not that we all know, but The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe, I think it's in not Persuasion, Northanger Abbey, that plays a pretty big part in like the plot. And yeah, so you could definitely have your pick of either some non-fiction or a bunch of classical literature from just before Jane Austen. Or also, a lot of them were also writing at the time of Jane Austen. In the same vein, we have the Jane Austen book club, and I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember if I actually read this book, but I watched the movie, and I really, really enjoyed the movie. This is about a bunch of women and one guy who come together to have a book club about Jane Austen, and we just follow their lives and see like how they evolve and how it all ties back to Jane Austen and her books. And obviously, if you pick this one, you can pick again any Jane Austen book because they go through all of them. Then we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, if you want a contemporary romance. And it's basically about this editor who goes away with her sister to like a tiny town in North Carolina, I think, for like a getaway to just spend some time together and have fun. But she keeps running into this guy she kind of knows from back in the city. And whenever they met back then, it wasn't great because, they just got on the wrong side, what's it called? Got off on the wrong foot with each other. But yeah, for some reason he's in this town. I can't remember why. But they both do love books because they're both editors. And now this is the Violet Fox Bookshop that says that all these books are mentioned in the story. And then the two sisters also have an ultimate reading list, and there are a number of authors mentioned in the book as well. So I feel like you can definitely take your pick here, buy a bunch of books. And like a lot of it is romance, but so be it. The Kiss Quotient I can definitely recommend. I really enjoyed that when I read it. I don't think I've read a ton of other things here. Oh, Narnia, a classic. It's time for a reread for me. Also Pride and Prejudice, so if you're on your Jane Austen kick, you can continue. Let's see, the second page. The Devil Wears Prada, also a good classic book. And I think it's the second movie coming out. I'm not really tuned into movies and stuff, so, but I feel like that could also be a good shout. Anne of Green Gables, classic. Yeah. Then there's also 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson, if you are more into the mystery thriller aspect of the books. This is about a bookshop owner, and his bookshop specializes in mystery thriller books. And at one point he wrote a blog post called 8 Perfect Murders, I think, and basically he picks 8 murders from fiction books across the time. So what's it called? From famous books like Agatha Christie and stuff like that. And do beware that this spoils all the books that they mention, so maybe read the other book first if you don't want to be spoiled. I will say it does have a bunch of the classic ones, so maybe you do know the end of The Secret History or some of the Agatha Christie stuff, but like I said, if you want to pick a different one and don't want to be spoiled, don't read 8 Perfect Murders first. I think Q doesn't really specify the order that you read them in, so if you know that the Strangers on a Train is mentioned in this book, I think it doesn't matter which order you read them in. And it would be kind of sucky to be spoiled for the book that you're about to read next. So, but like I said, a ton of murder mysteries here that you can read. And a bunch of Agatha Christie. I feel like the Patricia Highsmith is also a classic, although I haven't read it. I would like to say I read this one before all the things happened, so don't come at me. I have also read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Really enjoyed that one. There's also Sherlock Holmes in here, and I think obviously this is more than 8, but yeah, I think there's, in the course of his daily life, he mentions a bunch of books, a more what's it called, on the sidelines, and then there are these 8 specific ones that he goes deeper into. And then I am reading right now I'm reading Lolita in Tehran, which is a memoir in books. And normally I don't like memoirs because I'm just I don't care about other people. That sounds so harsh when I say it. But I don't really. You have to be extremely interesting for me to care about you and your personal life. But if you're not my friend, I mean, I sound like a psycho now. What I'm trying to say is, normally I don't like memoirs because I feel weird about reading someone's life and then rating it, But anyway, I feel like this is a little bit different because we are, learning about these girls and women who are reading banned books in Iran. So we're also learning some history about Iran, which I personally don't know a lot about, so that's interesting too. And then we also get some literary analysis of all these classic books that they are reading, because the Azar is a literature professor at the university, and they do have this book club where they read and discuss books, and everything is kind of interspersed, so it's not like you get an essay on Lolita, but you know, there are some observations and stuff made during the reading. Obviously I haven't finished this yet, but I do feel like it's interesting. And this is again one of the ones where they take, I think, like 6 or 7 books that are the core of the book club, but then a bunch of other books are mentioned, like in offshoots and stuff. So I think they're reading Lolita, and they're reading The Great Gatsby right now, where I'm at in the book. But they also do mention Huckleberry Finn and Madame Bovary a lot, and let's see, Moby Dick I think has also been mentioned already. Yeah, but anyway, as you can see, there's also a lot to choose from here. Again, this is veering more towards the classic side of things in literature. So as for my own TBR, I have been looking at Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. I think I mentioned this in an earlier video because this takes place in Georgia, and I was gonna use it for road trip prompt, and I still am planning on doing that. I'm planning on doubling up as much as I possibly can. But I think I gave a little bit of a false synopsis then, because I just had a little read through to see what it was actually about. And it turns out that Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books is actually not Lula Dean's, it's someone else's, kind of. Let me explain. So Lula and her arch nemesis Beverly are living in the small town in Georgia, and Lula wants to ban all the books, like all of them, basically, except the ones that she deems worthy. So she makes this little free library, and she puts in all the books that she recommends and wants people to read. And someone finds out, and instead of like emptying it or trashing it or whatever, they replace all the books with all these books that Lula wants banned. So there are like gay fiction, what else? Other religious stuff, all sorts of things. So people come and they think they are borrowing like a worthy book because the dust jacket is still the same, and then they take it home and maybe it's like a gay coming of age story. And obviously these people are changed by the books they read, and yeah, I guess at some point the jig is up and we'll see what happens then. Then I found this book called This is the Canon, Decolonize Your Bookshelf in 50 Books, and I'm assuming it does what it says on the tin, giving me 50 books to decolonize my bookshelf, which would be good because I do tend to, like, I try to read diversely, but I not like, I could be more conscious about it, is what I'm saying. Like, I could try harder. So this would be a good place to start, I think. Maybe we could find out what books are mentioned in this one, just as a teaser. Okay, so we are on the Reading Matters blog, and make a good list. 50 books. So, no thanks. The list arranged in chronological order is as follows: Love in a Fallen City, never heard of it. All About H. Hatter, 1,000 Cranes, The Lost Steps, The Lonely Londoners. Things Fall Apart, I actually did read that one. White Sargasso Sea is on my TBR, so I could do that one. If Beale Street Could Talk, I have heard about that one, just like in passing, you know. Kindred, I did read that one, yeah. The Color Purple is also on my TBR. Beloved, I read that a long time ago. The God of Small Things, I read that too. Yeah, so there's definitely The Kite Runner, I read that one too, really good. Half of Yellow Sun, I read that too. Okay, so I'm not like completely out of the loop here. But there's definitely stuff that I could read from this book. I'm assuming it will also give kind of an introduction to the book and the author, and maybe like the time it was set in and, you know, stuff like that. Then there's the reading list by Sarah Nisha Adams, which is not a reading list, but a novel about a reading list. So this is about two people who are trying to make connections through a reading list that one of them finds in an old book in the library. And I'm now just realizing that the books on that list might not be real. I'm hoping they are. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, but it does sound like an interesting thing. And you know me, I love a list. I love a good list. And I would really want to, I'd really love to have like a reading list of 100 greatest blah blah to read, but like every time I see one where it's like 100 greatest fantasy novels or 100 greatest books of all time or yada yada yada, all of those, I go through them and then I see some stuff that I read and that I just absolutely hated. I'm like, I cannot waste my time potentially reading stuff that I'm gonna hate. You know. But anyway, then there's also the book club for troublesome women. This one I'm not so sure. I'm probably not going to pick this one because as far as I can tell from the synopsis, they only read one book, which is The Feminine Mystique, that in their time has just come out, because this is like housewife 1960s era, and they are basically not really happy with their lives, even though they can't put a finger on why. And then this book, The Feminine Mystique, which is a real book, I'm pretty sure, comes out, and they decide to read it for the book club and basically just find themselves and figure out, you know, their bodies, their wants, their needs, their minds, the world, everything. Yeah, so I'm not sure this is going to be on my TBR. I'm definitely leaning more towards either Lula Dean or This Is the Canon. But we'll see. I might also come across just, you know, reading in the wild books that do mention other books and just take it from there. And my TBR is never set in stone. So and that can be good and bad. But yeah. Let me know what you are reading, any interesting books. Do you know of any interesting bookceptions? Let me know. I would love to hear from you, and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!